Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back again. We're going to do Ken Shoulders number 10 today, and we have three short papers that he wrote. The other thing that we're going to do is I have a small short video of Chris Beskar talking about the F-35 fighter and how he's designing a replacement for it. And he's also talking about how he's accomplished everything in life by the age of 23. We tried to play it. We wanted to play it for you guys right now, but it didn't work. So Brandon's going to connect a link to it that will be accessible through this, and he's also going to put it on his channel once we're done here.
Do you want me
So
to show it now, Eddie? Do you want me to show it now or at the end of
yeah, you could show
the
the just so
Okay.
what it kind of looks like. Unfortunately, we can't play it because the sound didn't work. But
So that's
this
Chris
is
Beskar. Eddie,
yeah,
and I'll just
yeah, Chris Beskar talking to David Wilcock, who you'll see here in a second once the yeah, there's David Wilcox. So they're talking back and forth, and I've got about 10 hours of this stuff that was done a long time ago. It was probably done about 4 years ago now, I think, or something like that. But we'll let you we'll play it and let you hear it so that everyone can see David Wilcock and Chris Beskar together. And also remember that Chris was the one that gave us all this good information on Ken Shoulders' research that we're going to go through again today here as well. So
I'll put a link into that in the video in the YouTube video. I'll put a link to it
yeah, that'd be great.
and I'll upload it to YouTube.
And in the future here, pretty close future, Lacey and I are actually going to interview Chris Beskar again, so that'll be up on my channel eventually, and probably we'll get put up on your channel as well, Brandon, as well. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well let's get going. Which mass? This is going to be an interesting one.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. Witch Mass by Ken Shoulders, 2006. When confronted daily with the ability of an EVO, exotic vacuum object, EVO, to reduce both express charge and mass, and also faced with the incessant chant or chorus of E equals mc squared, energy equals mass times velocity of light squared. One must ask the question of which mass should we be concerned with as it slides over a range of at least several billion. The answer implied is that we must use one and only one single particle to accurately apply the law. Still, considering the incredible profusion of the effect of charge clustering, we should know how to cover the questions this effect raises, as the energy laws are supposedly too fundamental to lightly toss them around. The intended outcome of such a quest is to devise new ways for deriving useful energy from the mass variation effect associated with EVO action, exotic vacuum object, or charge cluster action.
Yep.
Although I have investigated several such means, I strongly believe I have found neither all nor the best of them. An allied mystery with the mass reduction effect is how the charge tracks the mass reduction so accurately over such an enormous range. At this point, this tracking is measured as having a range of at least 1,000,000,000 to 1. This implies something so fundamental as charge and mass being identically the same, with the stated difference being only a convenient definition conjured up by previous physicists and not total reality. We are at the gateway of answering these fundamental questions, but I suspect any new answers will be drowned out by the orthodoxy of the Church of past science. A consensus is not really needed here, as mass will do what mass does, but it would be nice at least it would be nice to at least have a new agreement between vanguard science workers. Which mass should we use as we move forward?
Wow. And that was written in 2006. So very interesting. That ratio of 1 billion to 1 is also kind of interesting. But he's right. The church of the past science, we have to get past that. And that's what we're doing with subquantum kinetics. Cool. What's the next one? Okay, the dark.
Dark
All
Matter
right.
Messengers by Ken Shoulders, 2006.
Okay, cool.
What it is, a fanciful sounding mode for communicating information and physical matter is becoming available using EVOs or synthetic WIMPs, 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 as a form of information-bearing projectile. These will be capable of rapidly traversing galactic distances and being directed with the selectivity afforded only projectiles. For all intent and purposes, it is a homemade miniature black hole that has temporarily swallowed ordinary matter as information and that will regurgitate it later upon proper association with another of its kind. This is definitely teleportation, but it is not yet telekinesis of the psychic kind.
Hmm.
It is an extremely selective process, but one needed when transferring information throughout the very noisy universe, and it is certainly a great improvement over electromagnetic messaging methods.
Wow.
Message preparation. When an EVO is operated in the white, grey, or black mode, it sequesters both charge and mass to such an extent that it becomes arbitrarily non-interactive with ordinary matter, using charge as its principal particle mediator. If during the formation process an EVO has nuclear matter introduced into it, as shown in various essays by the author that can be downloaded from this website. I'm not sure if it works, but there may be another one.
Yep.
That loaded material is also subject to the same rules of charge and mass reduction as the basic EVO, exotic vacuum object, or charge
Hmm.
cluster. This can be seen in the previously referenced essays as the ease with which propulsion is achieved, or the included mass having a much lower value in the sequestered state. At this initial inclusion, nucleons must be arranged for whatever coding is required, be this a simple message or a biological structure. The loading limit is still to be determined, but the basis for beginning that task is now a fact. Additionally, the binding force discussed here is consistent with published dark matter behavior and probably is dark matter based. Next, the projectile is quieted further toward the black state by simply allowing it to reorder itself in a tranquil zone of the apparatus. Finally, the prepared EVO with its message is projected out of the apparatus, likely at slightly lower than the light speed, towards its ultimate destination. No shield is needed as it penetrates ordinary matter and admirably, like the WIMP it is. WIMP, is that our weak interacting
Weakly interacting massive
massive
particle?
particle?
Yeah.
One of these messengers could be launched now and probably are invariably generated by sporadic processes millions of times in every second. but an extremely narrow band for point-to-point communication exists due to the narrow propagation angle. Selective velocity range in the detector and type of coding build into the message. The greatest present hope for finding the correct destination uses a combination of projectile mode for the bulk of the trip coupled with an electromagnetic terminal guidance being engaged with concomitant velocity reduction when approaching the expected destination. Detecting the message. Sympathetic coherent coupling between EVOs, exotic vacuum objects, operating within close proximity of each other has been found. It is a form of coupling experienced by something so simple as water droplets. Water droplets do not unite when they have disparate position or velocity, but they do when gently introduced. To make EVOs unite, it is necessary to closely match the pair of EVOs in position, direction, and velocity, and then watch for an increase in indicated energy due to the union. While doing this, many sporadic indications show something like a noise background, possibly from detection of natural WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles, as the electromagnetic noise is supposed to be low due to the EVO binding force, having lowered the charge interaction with the outside world. In addition, in any detection method visualized thus far, a gray EVO bias state must be maintained. If it is white, there is no differential reading. If the EVO bias is too low toward the black side, there is also no detectable signal, as interaction will not likely change the initial EVO sufficiently for detection. The noise level in this system is possibly a fundamental thing due to having to operate in a gray mode with electromagnetic noise interference, a distant and distinct possibility. Also, it is not known what the fundamental dark matter noise level is, and it could be very high for the primitive methods discussed here. This dark matter noise is also of concern in transmission of messages and matter through space, as the abundance and distribution of interacting dark matter is not known. Still, it beats radio telescopes for transferring this kind of stuff.
Wow. So he's talking about using these EVOs in sort of almost like a wormhole to send information that is basically shielded for the most part. Wow. And the other thing that I really picked up on was when he says that in any detection method visualized thus far, a gray EVO bias state must be maintained. So the bias state is sort of the voltage that you potential that you set up, a negative voltage potential that you set up. If it is white, there is no differential reading. If the EVO bias is too low toward the black side, so that was the statement that really got me. I think if the voltage is too negative and the vacuum is too hard, you end up with this black state. So it's a matter of knowing how to set things up in the experiment. But this is fantastic because this is sending information across the galaxy with a different technique completely, right? Like he says, radio telescopes still do it, but this is doing it a lot better. Wow.
I'll move on to the next bit. A
Mhm.
leak from our universe to another. Ken Shoulders, 2006. Apparently, a physical matter leak occurs between our universe and another still unexplored one. All that has to be done to show this effect is to generate an EVO and let it subside to its natural black state limit, whereupon it disappears from our cognition. This
Mm.
produces a highly unexpected but actual disappearance of matter that is accomplished on an everyday basis. Frequency of this event occurs at an astonishingly high rate, and the precursors can be seen in natural lightning events like that shown by the author in the essay EVO Life Cycle, EVO
Mm.
Exotic Vacuum Object or Charge Cluster, EVO Life Cycle. This reference, along with other writings and background material, is on allied subjects, can be downloaded from this website, which doesn't work, but there's another one that does. This black EVO state can even be occasionally seen from such simple events as a spark discharge body
Mm.
formed by moving one's body across a rug or car seat, then touching a conductor. The needed quiescent black state is not as frequent as the more normal visible spark, but it is common enough to be ranked above insignificant. When seeking a physical analogy for the driving force behind this process, which always occurs to produce a blacker EVO state in the absence of disturbance, a pressure analogy can be evoked. A driving force is seen to occur between the higher pressure side of our white universe and the other or black universe residing in an effectively lower pressure region of space. It might even be appropriate to signify that the black universe identified here is a much touted dark matter regime, which is said to dominate in quantity over our normal matter. If this interpretation can be taken as a valid analogy, then the black hole type of EVO we generate locally becomes a connector or conduit for all sorts of new communication to another universe, albeit at this time a seemingly unidirectional one. The reverse flow of matter or recharge of our local domain on Earth from the dark domain is possible through particle bombardment from the sun or from capture of WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles, as matter supplied from the dark side. We could still benefit from this event if the WIMP capture were to be our sun, which then passed the normal matter onto us as a resupply of leaked matter. That's it.
Wow. Um, Interesting when he starts talking about the black EVO state can even be occasionally seen from the simple events as a spark discharge formed by moving one's body across a rug or car seat and then touching a conductor. Interestingly enough, we were actually doing some experiments by trying to pick up paper by using charge yesterday, actually. So that's really interesting. And again, they're talking about how the black EVO can be used for communication, it sounds like, right? Um, this is really, really cool. EVO life cycle. I'm gonna have to look for that one next time, you guys, and maybe
So,
we
so
can
Eddie, what
go
does it
through that.
mean by still it beats radio telescopes for transferring this kind of stuff?
Well, I think that he's saying that once it almost sounds like it's like in a wormhole tunnel and it's protected information. So all of the noise, like he was saying, from all of the things that occur in the universe is sort of canceled out, and you get much more of a pure signal essentially
Yeah,
using this
yeah,
technology. So he's describing a whole new way of looking at the universe. I mean, literally here, right? That's what I'm getting. What do you get out of that, Brendan? That's
yeah.
he's just
I don't know enough about. I'm just reading it off the top of my head, So I'm still learning a lot about it. But it sounds very interesting. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
We
um,
need to learn more. But it seems like this going from the black EVO type to the gray and then into the white has a lot to do with how to make this technology work. Because he's basically talking about a whole new, different type of communication technology using charge clusters here. Because I do know that part of the reason they did charge clusters was to pack more and more and more energy into a smaller and smaller packet. Well,
yeah,
what he's talking about now is the same thing, except it's not energy.
like
He's
you were
talking
saying
about
before in the previous,
information, right? It's information being packed in there.
you were saying in a previous session that it's like a portal. And EVOs could be like a portal for the
Yeah,
soul or something. So you're saying that the EVO you can communicate through it. Do
it,
communications through it, sort of thing.
yeah, it sounds like that they're opening up a portal, and because this portal isn't influenced very greatly by other stuff coming in, the signal going through it is really pure, very pure. It sounds like so that would make it a better setup than radio telescopes. I mean, I spent about a decade at the Dominion Radio Observatory in Penticton because the lady that ran the place was actually a close family friend. And yeah, it's pretty interesting technology. Really cool. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions about it? And if not, we can stop the recording and
Is anybody familiar with the work of Eric Dollard? Do you know who that name is? If I say Eric Dollard,
um
modern day Tesla. I mean, you can find it, videos of him. You type his name.
yes, yes,
He's
yes,
got his whole thing about counter space. I mean, he talks about the different forms of electricity and basically how there's a whole different realm of counter space. So I've got my own working concepts basically after digesting a lot of information, including stuff that I've recently read through with Paul Laviolette, a
yep,
lot of these other big minds. But basically, it's and you think I think the writing hints are all over the place. I mean, you look in the waters or reflection, it's not exactly. I mean, between the sleeping state and the awake state, there's like almost everything seems to have like a flip side, and then there's also
yep,
who's the other guy, the reciprocal system of theory. The Dewey B. Larson
yep,
material, how he basically talks. I mean, basically, like we us linear beings, and you were talking about this earlier about how actually all times like and I've had this exact same thought when I was much younger before I even read into any of this stuff about your conscience is basically your future self talking to you.
absolutely.
And like that, like it's almost just when I had that thought, it was almost like my body shook because it was like your pineal glands just like it says the truth rings the highest. It's like that's true. It's like
Yep,
you ultimately know when you happen upon the truth. So all that
absolutely.
being said, like I think basically what this has said, he's talking about this counter space idea. Now, well, if you go into quaternion math, and then Eric
Yep,
Dollard has some, he calls it versor algebra, which is an easier way to do quaternion math. There really is, a counter space to all
yep,
this stuff, and you can do real calculation with it on how to harness this stuff. The other thing I'll throw out there, since I know Brendan, I've talked to two meetings, but I know everybody else's is new. So now I don't take it word for word. There's a lot of his theory that I absolutely don't agree with, especially number one being he doesn't leave any room for the ether. But Paul Laviolette absolutely know who he was. I find references to Randy Mills's work, but if you go on the Brilliant Light Powers website, who's Randy Mills, who basically has made a sun in a bottle, and I think compared to anybody with practical application for a basically a free energy device. I mean, he's there. The guy's an absolute brain. But his whole thing on dark matter is basically caused the hydrino state. So basically, it's a reduced electron state of hydrogen that, given that hydrogen is the most prevalent, atom in the universe by far,
Yeah.
it only makes sense that this reduced state of hydrogen is that it. And it all kind of jives because, when I start looking at like Bob Grenier's work, and then I brought up in our meeting yesterday, I was talking about, oh man, Walter Russell, the Universal One, the guy who was kind of like a
Yeah.
clairvoyant from back in the day.
Yeah.
And his
Walter Russell's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this stuff's amazing, and I kind of think that a lot of people, just from a visualization standpoint and understanding it, when you completely collapse and get to that basically zero point of stillness of consciousness, which is basically centers everything,
Yep.
that's where true power is at. I mean, that's also like your crossroads for your ether and whatnot as well. So the reason why, again, I don't agree with everything he's got to say, and I wouldn't be able to challenge him on a just a math base because the guy's a brain. But this Randy Mills, his hydrino theory with basically collapsing the electron orbital state, and he's even saying much smaller. I mean, like normally you have your n equals one, n equals two. You have basically these discretized. I forget the name of that rule. Basically, why it sits there, but he's basically claiming these lower energy states, and it releases a tremendous amount of energy, which again, just from a philosophy standpoint, seems to jive. So I
Yep.
know that's a lot, but
Yeah.
this is all consistent. I think you have a lot of different visionaries all kind of hinting at the same concept.
Yeah. And Chris Beskar and David Wilcock talk about space and counter space for sure in
Yeah.
some of the stuff that I've got, screenshots and whatnot. We should probably go into that at some point. Definitely, because you have space time and time space as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Everything is all sort of interconnected there for sure. Well, cool. Does anyone else have any comments or anything to add? No? Then
I
maybe we
think
can,
that's all.
yeah, we can end the recording and then,
Okay, thank you everyone for listening. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you, Eddie,
yeah,
for sharing and the others who contributed. Okay, cheers then. Bye.
yeah, bye.
All right, take care.